All right, so now it's time to assemble our garden. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to turn on a couple of the flowers here. Let me grab this first one, grab the move tool, slide it over, grab this one, grab the move tool, slide it over. This way we can kind of see what we're working on. And then we have our last flower. Whoops. That over there. All right, so that's our flowers. I'm going to go ahead and group these. I'm going to rename it flowers. I'll turn those off. Turn the leaves back on. Group these. As leaves. Now, I'm going to duplicate each of these groups and move them up because I want to keep the originals so that I always have those to go back to. And I'll show you a trick here. If you start to run out of layers, you can always go back to your gallery, swipe left on it, and click duplicate. So now I have another one and I can kind of condense things if I want to for extra layers. In this case, I'm still okay on layers, but that's just a tip or trick to help you out if you do start to run out of layers. So I've got my originals down here. I've turned those off. I'm going to just leave those alone. They're there if I need them, if I mess something up. I'm going to turn the leaves off and open my flowers group back up here so that I can start positioning these. One reason that I save the originals is that I often move the flowers a little bit off the canvas when I'm positioning them, which cuts off that stem or whatever it is that's poking out the edge of the canvas. So this way I've got the original there to go back to if I need it. So let me turn a couple of these off so that we can start positioning here. I'm going to do, this one's larger, so let's start with that one. Grab that one. Make my canvas smaller so that you can see it. I'm on uniform. I'm going to turn off my snapping because that won't help in this case. I'm going to move that down again. You can see I'm cutting off some of that stem there, but I don't need it. So I think we're good. I'm going to leave the size where it is, I think. Tilt it slightly. That looks good to me. So now let's position this one somewhere. Grab that one. I feel like I actually want it sort of rotated the other way. So I'm going to flip it horizontal, tilt it ever so slightly, and move it down and to the edge. I'm happy with that. All right, now let's grab this little guy here. Now let's grab this little guy here, select him, go to move him. I think he's going to be nice on this edge here. So I'm going to tuck him down a little bit. I'm happy with that. Now this one, this last one, I've selected it. I'm going to move it. I'm going to put that one right about there, I think is good. I'm happy with that. All right. Now you can see our garden's starting to take shape. To be able to arrange everything, I'm going to start duplicating these, creating a white background so that they can layer on top of each other without being seen through. So we'll start at the bottom here. I'm actually going to do this with each layer, and you've seen me do this in other tutorials as well, but so we'll take our first flower there, we'll duplicate it, go up to the magic wand, hue, saturation, and brightness, layer, go all the way up in brightness. I've left that layer on top so that I can see when it actually becomes opaque. Duplicate a couple times, pinch, duplicate again, pinch. I can still see it, so I'm going to go one more time. I think we'll do it. Yep, now it's disappeared. So pinch that. Now I'm going to move the flower above the white and pinch those together. Okay, now that I've got the white background behind it, let me move it up so that I can demo here. I'm going to grab it and move it around. Now you can see when I rearrange it on top of the other flowers, you can't see them through it. So I'm good to go. So reset, put that back where it was. Now I'm going to do that with each of them. So again, duplicate, hue, saturation, and brightness, layer, brightness to the max, duplicate, duplicate, pinch, duplicate, and I think again one more time, duplicate, move the flower above it, pinch those two together. That way they stay together and I don't have to worry about them getting separated later on. Although you can leave them separate if you think you want to for any reason. So again, duplicate. And I'm going to go ahead and speed this up here since you've seen it a few times. So I'll be back when all of the layers have been set up. See you in a minute. Okay, now I've got all my flowers duplicated and turned into white backgrounds so that they're all set. I can rearrange them in whatever order I'd like. I'm probably going to want duplicates of some of these to move around and to play with for extras. So I think I'd like another one of these guys. So I'm going to open up my flowers. I'm going to duplicate that. Now to make it look different, I'll show you a couple of tricks. There's a few things that you can do, but so I can take the duplicate, I can grab the move tool, I can flip it horizontally, I can make it smaller. Let me move it up here so you can see. I can also go to the warp tool and I can rearrange things a little bit. So you can see by moving stuff around the different points on the flower here, you can get a slightly different curve or bend or what have you. You don't want to overdo this because you can really warp something out of shape, but a little bit doesn't hurt. So I'm good with that. I'm actually going to adjust the color of this a little bit. So I'm going to go to color balance, layer, click on this little sun over here, highlights. I think it's going to be the midtones that are going to give me the most effect. So I'm going to grab the midtones. Let me zoom in here so that we can see a little bit better. And I'm going to kind of nudge it towards yellow a little bit. Let's try the highlights. The highlights are giving me more effect. So that's a little bit more towards yellow. I'm going to actually up the red a little bit too. I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to actually go up now under Hue, Saturation, and Brightness, Layer. I think it's a little too bright, so I'm going to drop the saturation down just a little bit, and I'm going to up the brightness just a little bit. You can also adjust your hue here. I find I can fine-tune it better with the color balance layer than the Hue, Saturation, and Brightness layer. But they can both work together, so play around with those until you get the look that you want. So now that it looks like a different flower, I'm going to take it, I'm going to move it behind these other ones here. And let's slide it into place. I'm going to switch back to uniform because I don't want to warp anymore. Twist this a little bit. I might even make it a wee bit smaller. Okay, that looks good there. And I think I'd like another one of these. So let me grab that one, duplicate it, flip it, resize it. I'm going to move it up where we can see it a little bit better, at least temporarily. I'm going to go over to my color balance layer, zoom in a little bit so we can see better. I'm still on my highlights. In this case, I think I want to go a little bit more, let's go towards magenta and a little bit more towards red. This will give me a more pink effect on the whole thing. And I think that's good. I don't think we need to mess with the midtones or shadows, but it is a little bit too bright. So I am going to switch back to Hue, Saturation, Brightness, Layer. I'm going to bring my saturation down a little bit. And again, my brightness up just a hint. I'm at 41 on saturation and 52 on brightness in this case. Apply. And now let's position this guy. I'm going to move it down in the pecking order a little bit. And actually, before I position it, I think I want to move this one over a little bit. So let's grab that one. And then grab our one that we just adjusted. I think we're going to make it smaller still, and we'll tuck that. Kind of peeking out there. Maybe we'll go a little smaller. I think that's gonna work. All right, now that we've got a few flowers in place, let's look at our leaves. I'm gonna turn the flowers off temporarily. I'm gonna go into the leaves. Let me turn off two of them so that we can see this one. Now in this case, I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the flowers. I'm going to create a white background for them so that I can position them at will. So duplicate the layer, magic wand, hue, saturation, brightness, layer, max on the brightness, duplicate, duplicate, pinch, duplicate, pinch, I think one more time, and then bring the leaf up above and pinch those two together. Now I'm going to speed this up while I do the other layers. Okay, and I'm back. I've got all my leaves set up now. I'm going to turn the flowers back on. Let's turn off 2 of the leaves so that we can just work with 1 at a time. Now this one is obviously quite large. Definitely going to resize this one. I think it would be a nice filler in here. Go back up just a little bit. I'm happy with that. I'm actually going to, let me close up the leaves. I'm going to move them below the flowers, the whole group, because I think they're supporting elements more than main players, so that'll be easier to adjust them then. All right, I'm happy with that. Let's turn on the next leaf, or botanical element. Let's see. Make sure that you grab the individual element, not the entire group like I just did. I don't know that it needs resized. I think I want to flip it and rotate it and move it down. That's too much rotation. Move it down there. Good to go. And then we have our last element here. I'm going to flip it. I'm going to move it down and over to the edge. I'm happy with that. I definitely want another one of those over here, I think. So I'm going to duplicate it. Let's grab it and move it up so we can see it. Let's flip it. Let's warp this one a little bit. I'm good with that. And I'm going to mess with the color again. Color balance, layer. In this case, I do think the midtones. We'll see if I'm right. Let's bump up the yellow a little bit. Yes, that works. A little bit on the red. That looks good. So it gives it a little bit more of a brown effect. Happy with that. So let's go back to move, uniform. Tuck that in here. Now from here on in, it's a matter of deciding what you want more of. What you might want to draw again. I definitely think we need to maybe do this one. So let's grab another one of those and position that. And then maybe one more tall leaf back here. So let me go in to the flowers. Find that flower. That's it. So I'm going to duplicate it. And I'm going to move it up where I can see it a little bit better. I think in this case, to change it, I'm going to grab my eraser tool. And what I'm going to do is erase. Let me get my eraser a little bit bigger here. I'm going to erase this one whole branch. And if you're having trouble seeing what you're doing, you know, always, that's a nice thing about having things in groups. You can turn that entire group off. So let me finish erasing here. I think that will work. All right, I'm going to flip it horizontally. I'm going to rotate it a little bit. I'm going to make it smaller. I'm going to bring it maybe down there. Let me go ahead and turn my leaves back on so I can sort of see better what I'm doing. I think that looks pretty good there. I actually think that I tilted it a little bit too much. I'm happy with that. And then I think we want maybe another one of these leafy ferny type deals to tuck in over here. So I'm going to duplicate that and let me move it up here. I'm going to go ahead and turn the flowers off so I can see a little bit better what I'm doing. Now I definitely need to adjust this one. In this case, I think to adjust it, I'm going to go freeform and I'm going to make it a bit more narrow. I think that looks good. That varies it quite a bit. I'll flip it and then let's go in and do some color adjustments. So color balance, layer. I think we'll go back to highlights on this one. I definitely want to go more pinkish red on this one. So I'm going to adjust towards red and a little bit towards magenta. I know this is quite strong, but we're going to go in and adjust the hue, saturation, and brightness. So we'll take the saturation down. And in this case, I think we're going to make it darker instead of brighter. I'm happy with that. I think that's pretty good. Let's go with that. Let's turn our flowers back on and we'll adjust our leaf into place here. I think I'll make it a little bit smaller. Let me switch back to uniform so I don't distort it while I'm moving it. There we go. So I think you can kind of see the general idea here of how we create our garden. There's all kinds of different things that you can do with this. Let me go to my gallery here and show you. This is another one that I did while I was figuring out how to do this tutorial for you. Now in this case, I've grouped everything together. I duplicated it and I flipped it up to the top to create sort of a border. So you could create text in here or just kind of a fun thing to do. So, and you can keep adding little bits and pieces in wherever you like. It's kind of, your imagination is the only limitation here. So that gives you a good idea of how to start. You can kind of take this and run with it. So I hope you enjoyed this. Don't forget to check out the freebies. Don't forget to like and subscribe and do all that normal YouTube stuff. And I will see you next time. Thank you so much and have a great day.